She was abandoned in a box with 3 words scribbled on it: "Don't want her." It was shortly after midday in Bakersfield, California, where the sun's heat was intense enough to bake through cardboard. I had gone outside the shelter for a break when I spotted it, a battered old fruit box left by the edge of our fence, right next to the garbage bins. Initially, I dismissed it as trash, but then I saw a flicker of movement. I approached cautiously. A cloud of flies dispersed. Inside lay a German Shepherd puppy, roughly 3 months old and as white as snow, coiled into a tight ball as if trying to vanish. Her fur was matted with a sticky substance, perhaps blood or something worse. One paw was bent unnaturally under her body, and dried cuts marked her side. Yet, against all odds, she was alive. I fell to my knees, my voice stuck between fury and disbelief. What kind of person does this? Who discards a living creature with the garbage and simply walks away? There was no blanket, only a greasy rag, and that cruel message scrawled on the box. "Don't want her," I repeated in a whisper. "Hey, baby girl, you're safe now." As I reached in, she didn't growl or even flinch. She didn't so much as lift her head. She just opened a single, clouded, dry eye and stared straight through me, as if uncertain I was even there. "My name is John, and I've been with the Brave Rescue Shelter for 7 years. I've witnessed dogs that were burned, starved, chained, and abandoned. But this case felt different. Maybe it was her desperate attempt to disappear, or the way her small tail was wrapped around her, as if she were hugging herself. I gently scooped her out of the box. She felt weightless, like a feather or a ghost. Her body trembled, emanating a radiating heat, as if she had been left baking in the sun for far too long. I clutched her to my chest, her faint heartbeat fluttering against my own ribs. "She's going to need fluids, now," I yelled while rushing through the shelter doors. Inside, the clinic team sprang into action, grabbing 4 bags, cold towels, ointments, and gloves. The German Shepherd puppy remained silent. Not a single whimper or bark escaped her. It was a silence that suggested she had already tried to speak in her short life, only to find no one was listening. One of the technicians remarked, "She's been out there for a while." I nodded, holding her paw, thinking how someone had looked at her and seen only trash. I sat with her for hours, my back propped against the kennel wall, tracking every shallow breath as if it were a countdown. Her name wasn't on the box, but that didn't matter. I had already chosen one for her in my mind, Marley. Because even in her silence, she deserved to have a voice. As I sat there, a single thought replayed in my head. How could anyone see her and just turn away? She was still breathing, but just barely. The fluorescent lights of the clinic hummed overhead as Marley lay still on the stainless steel table. Her small white form was dwarfed by the medical equipment surrounding her. Her chest rose and fell so subtly that I caught myself holding my own breath just to register hers. "Pulse is weak," Lisa observed, threading the 4 into her paw. "But she's fighting." That word, fighting, resonated with me, though she didn't appear to be fighting at all. She looked like she was fading away. The fluids dripped methodically. Her ears remained still. Her eyes stayed shut. The only indication of life was the gentle tremor that ran through her side with each labored breath. "She needs rest, warmth, and 0 stress," Lisa instructed, sliding a warm towel beneath her. I nodded but stayed put. I couldn't leave. I refused to let her be alone. The German Shepherd puppy made no sound, not even when the needle pierced her skin. I knelt beside her and murmured, "You're safe now, Marley. Nobody will ever harm you again." There was no response. No flick of an ear, no wag of a tail. Still, I remained. I carefully cleaned the filth from her fur with a damp cloth, discovering small patches where her skin had peeled, as if she'd been dragged across pavement. Her paw pads were raw, her nails cracked. And there, across her ribs, was a small, shallow wound, an angry red, likely caused by a rock or something sharp. "I don't think she's ever known a gentle touch," Lisa commented softly from behind me. The words crushed me. Outside, the Bakersfield sun cast a shimmering haze over the pavement. Inside, Marley's entire existence was confined to this single moment. A man sitting on the floor, watching over her as if she was important, as if she was someone. I located an old teddy bear in the storage closet, one of the toys we reserve for puppies who reach adoption day, and placed it beside her. She didn't stir. Hours ticked by. The shift change occurred, but I was still there. At some point, I rested my hand next to her paw. She didn't lift her head, but then, so slowly I almost wasn't sure it happened, her paw shifted a mere inch, just enough to touch my fingers. I felt it like a lightning bolt to my core. The tiniest, most broken German Shepherd puppy in the world was still trying, still reaching, still holding on. And that one touch conveyed everything. I don't want to be alone. She opened her eyes just before dawn, while the sky outside was still a muted gray. I hadn't left her side, having dozed off sitting up against the wall. Something woke me, a shift in the room's energy, the kind you feel rather than hear. I looked over, and there she was, observing me. Two pale blue eyes, clouded with fear and confusion, but open and alive. "Hey there, Marley," I whispered, my breath held. "You came back." She hardly moved, only blinking slowly and deliberately, as if the effort exhausted all her strength. But her gaze remained fixed on me, searching, as if trying to recall the meaning of trust. That expression struck a place in me I didn't realize was still tender. When I was 9, we owned a German Shepherd named Bella. She would curl up with me during my nightmares, and I'd bury my face in her fur and feel safe. When Bella passed, I didn't shed a tear. I simply stopped speaking for a week. I suppose even then, dogs communicated things people couldn't. Now, at 42, I found myself gazing at another German Shepherd puppy and feeling like a 9-year-old all over again. "I'm still here," I assured her, "and I'm not going anywhere." Her paw twitched slightly. Then, she attempted to lift her head, but it wobbled and fell back. Her body remained frail, trembling with exhaustion, but there was a new expression on her face, a question. "Who are you? Will you stay? Do I matter?" I moved closer and gently extended my hand. This time, she didn't flinch. As my fingers brushed against her muzzle, for the first time since being found in that box, Marley let out a long, shaky, real exhale. Lisa entered with a tray of soft food and broth. "Think she's ready to try?" she asked. "I don't know," I replied, "but she's looking at me like she might be." We offered a tiny amount of chicken puree on a spoon, holding it under her nose. At first, nothing. Then a sniff, a twitch of her black nose, a slight lean forward. "Come on, sweetheart," I urged. "Just one bite. Show me you're still in there." She licked it once, then again, and suddenly she was chewing, slowly, awkwardly, but with determination. Lisa released a breath she seemed to have been holding forever. "That's our girl." Tears stung my eyes, because with that single bite, Marley was making a choice. Not to give up, not to disappear, but to stay. I remained with her throughout the morning, holding her paw as she drifted between sleep and consciousness. She didn't cry or whimper, but each time she opened her eyes, they sought me out. I knew then that she wasn't just surviving. She was starting to believe she was worth saving. She bit me. Not hard, just a nip, a brief flash of teeth as I reached for her food bowl. It wasn't born of fear, but of instinct. Hunger. It was the most encouraging thing I had witnessed all week. "She's got fight," Lisa remarked, smiling from the doorway. We were 4 days in. Marley had been resting, eating small meals, and sleeping a lot. But today felt different. Today, the German Shepherd puppy was awake and alert. The look in her eyes was no longer just about survival. It was about will. She sat up, shaky and wobbly, but upright. Her ears were still floppy, but the right one had a little fold at the tip, as if it couldn't decide whether to stand. It gave her an almost cartoonish, ridiculous, and beautiful appearance. "She's got a fighter's ear," I said, crouching beside her, like it's always listening for danger. I placed a plush toy in front of her, a small stuffed fox. She sniffed it and then gently rested her head against it like a pillow. My heart broke a little. That evening, she attempted to walk, 1 step, then 2. Her bandaged paw still dragged slightly, but she didn't cry or hesitate. I watched her stagger across the rehabilitation room, her tail giving the faintest wag, as if her body were recalling what joy felt like. "Easy, Marley," I whispered. "There's no rush. You have time." But she wasn't waiting. She wanted to move, to live. Later, while writing her progress notes, I looked over and saw something that made me freeze. She had dragged the little fox toy to her bed and curled around it. In her sleep, her paw rested over it protectively, as if guarding something soft, something that was hers. That's when I realized she wasn't just recovering. She was reclaiming. reclaiming her right to feel safe, to be a dog again. Every day, I saw new parts of her personality come back online. Her curiosity, her spark, her quiet confidence. She would sniff the corners of the room and lift her head when someone called her name. She was rebuilding herself piece by piece, not with noise or tricks, but with silent courage. At feeding time, she began to bark just once, a soft "Hey, I'm here." The first time she did it, the entire clinic staff paused and smiled. It wasn't loud or strong, but it was hers. And when I knelt and held out my hand, she didn't bite. She licked it, one soft touch of her tongue against my fingers, like a whispered, "Thank you for staying." Everyone at the shelter had been calling her the white pup or box girl. But not me. To me, she was Marley from the moment I lifted her from that box. Today, I made it official. I wrote her name on her chart in bold ink. Marley, female German Shepherd puppy, 3 months. Lisa read it aloud, smiling. "Marley, that's a good name." I nodded. "Means sea fortress." She survived a storm nobody saw. There was something powerful about committing it to paper, as if she were no longer just a case number, but a person, a story in progress. Later that day, I brought her a soft, pale blue collar with a tiny silver tag that shimmered in the sun. The engraving read, "Marley, Brave Rescue." She tilted her head, sniffed it cautiously, and then nudged my hand as if she understood its meaning. As I clipped it around her neck, she didn't struggle. Instead, she sat still, dignified in her quiet way, as if she knew this moment was hers. This wasn't just a collar, it was a crown. From that day forward, Marley began to reveal glimpses of who she once was, or perhaps who she had always been. She sat taller and walked with more purpose, her right ear, still slightly crumpled, adding to her lopsided charm. She would follow me around the rehab room, her bandaged paw tapping softly on the floor behind me. When I'd turn to find her right at my heels, she'd look up as if to say, "Where are we going today?" Whenever a new person entered the room, she watched them, not with fear, but with cautious selectivity. But when it was me, her tail would move, not wildly, but just enough to convey, "I remember you." One evening, I brought in a warm blanket from my truck, one that smelled of the outdoors, pine needles, and sun. She curled up in it instantly, burying her nose and letting out a long sigh that I felt deep in my chest. "She trusts you," Lisa said from behind me. I nodded, watching her breathe. "And I'm trying to earn it every day." That night, as I sat on the floor with her, Marley rested her head on my leg. It wasn't by accident or for warmth. It was a conscious choice. There were no words, no sounds, just a quiet declaration between two souls who had found each other in the wreckage. "You gave me a name, and now I know I'm home." She waited for me every morning. By the time I unlocked the shelter's side door just after sunrise, Marley would be sitting upright in her recovery kennel, her tail tapping softly against the blanket. Her ears would perk up, or at least try to, and those blue eyes would lock onto mine as if I were the first good thing she'd ever known. "Morning, trouble," I'd whisper, and each time she'd give that tiny wag, as if we shared a secret. The days grew brighter, and so did she. Gentle baths had softened her coat, her appetite had doubled, and the wounds on her side were healing into faint pink scars. The limp in her paw persisted, but she didn't let it hinder her. One morning, I opened her kennel door, expecting to lift her out as usual. But she didn't wait. She stepped forward on her own, slowly, one paw then the other, wobbly and careful, then confident. I froze, not wanting to disturb the moment. The little German Shepherd puppy walked right past me into the open room. It wasn't far, just a few feet, but she did it by herself. "Look at you," I whispered. "You're doing it." Lisa captured the moment on her phone from the clinic desk. "That's the Marley strut," she laughed. "The Marley strut. I like that." Over the next few days, her explorations expanded. She sniffed corners, peeked under cabinets, and barked once at a mop as if it had personally offended her. Each action was small, but each was a victory. What struck me most was her gentleness. Despite being scared and hurt, she never lashed out. She observed the world with quiet suspicion, but offered her trust in careful increments. And she gave the largest piece to me. That Friday, a storm rolled in. Thunder cracked just after noon, setting off a chorus of howls from the other dogs. But Marley didn't hide. She came to me, pressed her body against my leg, and sat there, still and calm, as the world rattled around us. I ran my hand down her back, feeling her muscles relax. Not scared anymore, huh? She looked up at me, and in that single glance, I saw everything she had conquered: pain, hunger, abandonment. And still, here she was, the German Shepherd puppy tossed aside like trash, now sitting tall beside me as if she belonged, as if she were waiting for the next chapter. And perhaps I was, too, because every time I looked at her, I thought the same thing. If she's still trying, then what's my excuse? I never intended to get attached. When you work at a shelter, that's the first rule they impress upon you. Don't get too close. Don't take them home. Don't build dreams around a dog that is meant to leave. But rules had never met Marley. That morning, I discovered her curled up in her kennel with the little fox toy under her chin, her bandaged paw stretched out just enough to touch the blanket I had left folded beside her the night before. It wasn't an accident. She wanted that piece of me close. She was growing stronger daily, eating on her own and walking short distances without a limp. Her coat was clean now, still white, but with soft golden undertones when the sun hit it just right. She was beautiful, and I was terrified because I knew what was coming next. Once cleared by the vet, she would be listed on the adoption board. Families would visit, see her, and fall in love instantly. What was I supposed to do then? Smile and hand her over as if she wasn't already a part of my heartbeat? I tried to maintain my professionalism. I updated her file, monitored her healing, and told myself she deserved a home with a yard, children, and people who hadn't buried themselves in dog work to avoid life. But the truth was, I no longer wanted to be her rescuer. I wanted to be her person. Still, I hesitated because I had failed before. 3 years ago, I fostered a senior dog named Max. He was blind, slow, and nearing the end of his life. I swore I wouldn't fall for him, but I did. I gave him my couch, my time, my heart. Then, after 5 months, he passed away in his sleep with his head in my lap. It destroyed me. I stopped fostering after that, stopped letting myself get close, until Marley, this tiny German Shepherd puppy, discarded in a box, had reopened a part of me I thought was sealed shut. Her quiet glances, her trust, the way she leaned against my chest when I carried her outside. I'm not ready, I admitted to Lisa that afternoon. She raised an eyebrow. Not ready to lose her, or not ready to let her in. I had no answer. That evening, I took Marley out back for her walk. The clouds had parted, and the last rays of sunlight stretched like gold across the courtyard. She stopped near the garden, sat down beside me, and rested her chin on my boot. No leash, no command, just her choice. She chose to be near, and that's when I broke. I bent down, pulled her gently into my arms, and whispered, "I'm scared, baby girl. Not of you, but of me. Of how much this hurts even now." She didn't move, just breathed against my chest, slow and steady. And I knew. I hadn't saved Marley. She was saving me. She played. Not accidentally, not instinctively, but purposefully, as if she remembered what it meant to be a puppy. It happened on a quiet Tuesday afternoon. The shelter was calm, the sky was clear, and I had just finished cleaning her kennel when I felt something bump against the back of my foot. I turned to see Marley standing there, proud and balanced, her little white tail wagging with the fox toy dangling from her mouth. Then, without any warning, she bolted. Well, hobbled, really. Her back paw still had a slight drag, but she moved faster than I had ever seen her. She darted 5 feet away, dropped the toy, and looked back at me with an expression that could only mean, "Are you coming or what?" I laughed. I couldn't help it. "Oh, so that's how we're playing this." I lunged for the toy, but she pounced before I could grab it, scooping it back into her mouth and trotting away with a look of puppy-sized triumph on her face. For 15 minutes, we played back and forth like children. She made little growling sounds that were more like grunts. She even attempted a clumsy jump, landing flat on her belly with her legs splayed out like a frog, and then looked at me as if to say, "That didn't go as planned, did it?" But she was smiling. You could see it in her eyes, her tail, her entire being. And so was I. Lisa stepped out of the building mid-chase and froze, her hand over her mouth. "She's playing," she whispered. I nodded, breathless, like she never stopped. We let her stay in the yard longer than usual that day. She chased leaves, rolled in the grass, and lay on her back as if soaking up every ounce of light California had to offer. I remember kneeling beside her as she nuzzled the fox toy into my leg and thinking, this is what healing looks like. Not just medical reports, weight gain, or clean fur, but play, joy, and silliness. That evening, when I carried her back inside, she tucked her head under my chin and let out a quiet sigh. The kind of sound that says, today was a good day. And for the first time since finding her in that box, I stopped wondering who had left her there. Because Marley had stopped living in that moment and started living in this one. A German Shepherd puppy who no longer needed to survive because she was now free to live. They came for her on a Saturday morning. A young couple in their early 30s, with kind eyes and nervous smiles, walked through the shelter doors holding hands. I didn't think much of it at first. We always get weekend visitors. People looking to adopt. People looking to feel good about the possibility of saving a life. But then the woman saw Marley through the playroom glass, and everything shifted. Oh my God, she whispered. That's her. That's the one. The man looked over, then back at me. That's Marley. I nodded, a sudden tightness gripping my chest. Yeah, that's her. They stood before the glass for a long moment, watching as Marley sat quietly with her fox toy between her paws. She wasn't playing. She was waiting, watching the door as she always did around this time, waiting for me. I read about her online. The woman said, turning to me. The white German Shepherd puppy found in a box. I swallowed hard. Yeah, that's her story. They told me about their old dog, Luna, also a shepherd, who had passed away the previous year. They explained how they weren't sure they could open their hearts again until they saw Marley's face. She looks like hope, the man said. Hope. The word struck me like a punch. I led them into the playroom. Marley stood up immediately, her ears twitching and her tail lifting, but not wagging. She looked at me first, then at them. The woman knelt down. Hey, sweet girl. Marley didn't move. She watched, evaluated. I had seen her do this before with new staff, volunteers, even other animals. She was cautious, but not fearful, careful with her heart. The man held out his hand. Marley sniffed it, then looked back at me as if asking, is this okay? I gave her a slight nod. She stepped forward slowly, touched her nose to the woman's knee, and then backed away. That was it, her version of a hello. The woman's eyes filled with tears. She's perfect. I smiled, but it felt forced because inside, something was coming undone. I had prepared for this. I had told myself over and over that Marley deserved a real home, a house with toys and space to run, people with more time than me, a life outside the shelter. But none of that made this any easier. As they left to fill out the paperwork, Marley walked over and sat beside me, pressing her side against my leg. She didn't know yet, and I didn't know if I could go through with it. Because as much as I told myself I was saving her, the truth was, she had already saved me. And now someone else wanted to take her home. The question echoed louder than anything in my mind. Could I really let her go? She climbed back into the box. The very same box she was found in, stained, dented, and still faintly marked with the words, "Don't want her." We had kept it in a back room, tucked away near some storage bins. I don't know why I hadn't thrown it out. Maybe I thought we'd need it for a report, or maybe I just couldn't bring myself to. That morning, as I was gathering Marley's belongings, her blanket, her toy, her medical notes, she wandered into the room. The adoption was scheduled for 11 a.m. The couple would be arriving any minute. I was trying to keep it together. I heard a rustling sound first. Then I turned and saw her. Marley had stepped into the old cardboard box and curled her now stronger legs beneath her, her head resting on the side, her blue eyes staring directly at me. It was as if she remembered, as if she were saying, "This is where I started. Don't forget." I dropped to my knees, my chest clenching as if someone were sitting on it. "Marley," I whispered, my voice cracking. "Why would you?" She didn't move or whine. She just looked at me. In that moment, everything I had been avoiding crashed down on me. I couldn't let her go. I couldn't smile through it or fake pride. Because she wasn't just another German Shepherd puppy. She was my new beginning, my second chance. I sat down beside the box, unable to speak. Then, I reached for a marker, the same thick black one we used for intake labels. And without thinking, I drew a bold line through the words on the box. Don't want her. Beneath them, I wrote 3 new words, carefully and permanently. Loved. Wanted. Home. I felt her shift. She stood, stepped out of the box, and walked directly to me. With no hesitation, she pressed her forehead into my chest. That was my answer. When the couple arrived, I met them out front. I shook their hands, smiled through the ache, and told them the truth. I'm sorry, I said. I can't let her go. They looked surprised at first, but then the woman smiled. You already belong to each other, don't you? I nodded. She chose me from the very beginning. They understood and left without any fuss. And I stood there in the parking lot, Marley at my side, her leash in one hand and the adoption paperwork, torn in half, in the other. I wasn't her rescuer anymore. I was her person. She sleeps next to me now, not in a kennel or behind glass, but right here at the foot of my bed. She's curled into a perfect little crescent, her fox toy under one paw and her nose tucked into the crook of my leg, as if she were always meant to be there. The night after I told the couple no, I brought her home. There was no hesitation, no second guessing. I carried her through my front door and whispered, "Welcome home, Marley." She stepped onto the hardwood floor as if it were the moon. Every surface was new. The couch, the rug, the gentle creak of old wood beneath her paws. She sniffed everything cautiously at first, then with growing confidence. Within an hour, she had found her spot, a patch of sunlight near the back door. That's where she laid down and sighed, a sound that seemed to release something her whole body had been holding onto for too long. Over the next few days, she bloomed. She chased a tennis ball across my tiny backyard, watched squirrels from the window, and barked at the vacuum cleaner as if it were possessed. She started eating faster, even growling once at the neighbor's golden retriever through the fence, a soft, low sound that seemed to say, "This place is mine." I bought her a proper bed, one of those fancy orthopedic ones with memory foam. She still prefers the floor. But at night, when I turn out the lights, she pads into the bedroom and lies beside me, every single night without fail. And I sleep deeper now. There's something healing about her presence. The quiet rhythm of her breathing seems enough to keep my own pain at bay. The shelter staff still call her the miracle pup. They ask for updates and send visitors my way just to meet her. She greets them with polite sniffs and occasional tail wags. But when they leave, she's right back at my feet. My shadow, my second chance. She even started helping around the shelter during therapy visits for the scared new arrivals. We bring her in once a week, and she walks the line of kennels, tail high, eyes calm. She sits beside the dogs who won't eat and presses her body against the ones who tremble. She doesn't perform tricks or bark commands. She just shows up, and somehow, that's enough. The other day, a volunteer asked me, "Do you think she remembers the box?" I looked down at her, sleeping peacefully, her ears twitching in a dream, and replied, "She doesn't have to. I do, because Marley's past isn't who she is, but it's why she shines so brightly now." This once-forgotten German Shepherd puppy didn't just survive. She became a light for everyone who couldn't see their way forward. This little girl's journey from abandonment to rehabilitation highlights the crucial importance of nonprofit rescue organizations. Marley wasn't just a discarded German Shepherd puppy in a box. She was a soul waiting for someone to see her, to hold on, and to say, "You matter." She taught me that healing isn't loud or dramatic. It's quiet and slow. It's the thump of a tail on a hard floor, a soft paw resting on your chest, a moment of trust earned one breath at a time. Caring for a rescued puppy is more than love. It's a responsibility. It involves dedicated pet care and the decision to be someone's forever when the world has given up on them. There are countless dogs like Marley out there, unseen, unheard, waiting in silence. By sharing her journey and telling her story, we make it more likely that the next Marley will be found, helped, and brought home. These narratives do more than just touch hearts. They save lives. Be their voice. Be their hope.